Hey, y'all, and welcome to the podcast for the World Builders, where we dive into the spells and strategies for Black feminist world building and creative actualization. These weekly podcasts and newsletters are presented by Cedar School, where all of this theory that we get into meets practice. I'm so honored to be learning and practicing alongside you today and always. And if this is your first episode, thank you for tuning in. And if you are returning, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say it enough. Thank you for coming back. You keep you keep this thing on, right? So before diving in, if you are returning, right, you know about our podcast, like our grounding ritual. So often, y'all, we can be moving from thing to thing to thing and not take just 3 deep breaths to ourselves to pause and check in. So before diving into this episode, we're going to make sure we do just that. We're going to give ourselves permission to breathe into the present moment, right? We're going to just take a quick beat to become aware of our surroundings, no matter what we are doing or where we are. We're going to get curious about what's happening inside of our sensorium. We're not going to run away from it, right? We're going to drop into it. I'm going to take 3 deep, full belly breaths, right? Long inhales, even longer exhales. And I'm going to invite you to do the same if that feels possible and safe in this moment. I'm going to close my eyes. Again, feel free to do the same if that feels possible and safe in this moment. All right, y'all, let's begin. Mm-hmm. Always a good idea. Never regret doing that, right? All right, so as we mentioned, we're going to note one thing in our sensorium, something that we can see, touch, taste, smell, hear, something that we can maybe feel, right? Beyond the senses we even have language for. Everything's been so categorized, right, inside of the colonial context we're in. Some of the things that we can sense and intuit don't even have names, right? Let's embrace that right now. What can we sense in this moment? Something that I am sensing, I got my incense in the background. I'm again hearing the clanging of my earrings. Someone is making a beautiful meal for me downstairs, so I am hearing chopping, chopping of vegetables, which just feels like, oof. Right? My favorite way of being loved on is a meal being prepared to me. So that is music, or a meal being prepared for me. So that is music to my ears. Um, and I'm also feeling the fuzziness of my slippers right now. So now that we've checked in on our sensorium and what's happening there, let's now check in on our mood and intention right now in this very moment. Y'all, let's start with mood, as we always do. My mood is regulated and well rested, right? The R&R. After a week of riding the emotional tides of grief, loss, and transition, I am coming to you with a sense of full body relaxation and a felt sense of groundedness. And because I know how impermanent our moods are, right, I am grateful for this check-in, this opportunity to drop in and stay a while. And I'm going to invite you to do the same thing, right? Let's drop in and stay a while right here. How are you arriving? Can we give ourselves 3 seconds to feel what we feel without passing judgment or criticism? Now, again, we do nothing without intention, right? This is something that is often taught inside of meditation practice, right? Grounding inside of our intention can oftentimes create like a framework, right? Or some sort of structure, some sort of spatial awareness. We can kind of create the architecture of a moment through getting clear on what our intentions are, right? So that's what I'm also going to invite us to do inside this episode, especially since this episode is about frameworks. So, what is your intention for listening to this episode, right? Let's kind of ground in that. And if you are multitasking right now, what is your intention for multitasking, right? What is your intention around doing whatever it is you're doing in this very moment? Setting an intention and kind of grounding ourselves in the present with our intention can be a really beautiful way of sharpening our focus and our awareness. All right, so I want to invite us to do that right now. And, as you're thinking about that, y'all know I never invite you to do something that I'm not going to do, right? So here's the thing. This is my intention for recording this episode. If you're anything like me, you dream of serving folks through your process, not your personhood. All right. You are an artist, not an influencer. If you're anything like me and you kind of want to keep it that way, right? But your process can sometimes feel illegible, even to you, right? Been there. We're all clear there are life affirming benefits to illegibility, opacity, poesis, right? Abstraction. But we're also clear that if we want to serve communities we care about through a creative offer, that resources are practiced, that there needs to be some sort of outline of the transformative journey that we will take those folks through. This is our framework, right? This is your framework. And in this episode, I want to go over the power of frameworks because, y'all, there is some potency in the power of frameworks. And there is almost infinite creative capacity to build worlds that extend far beyond us inside of our frameworks and the journey that we embed in them, right? And the clarity that we embed in them. So, you checked in on your intention behind listening to this episode. I've checked in on my intention for recording it. Now let's get on to today's episode. In episode 67, no, we're going to rewind real quick just to set the stage. So in episode 67 titled, Is It Burnout or the Energetic Expense of a Breakthrough? I shared how spirit has been incessantly, y'all, ancestor spirit guides, they can be a little relentless. So they have been relentlessly inviting me to share the poems that I write on walks, right? In parking lots, in between errands, in the bathtub, and in the margins of the books I read, in the journal, in the pages that I journal inside of, right? There are these little poems that come to me, these little prayers that come to me, and I write them down and I let them do their thing on the page, but I rarely share them, right? I let them do the page in me and I let them do their thing on the page and in me and trust. For this entire time, I've just been trusting that they have been working their way in my life or doing their magic in my life in the background, but I just never shared them, right? And the beauty of having a public practice is that you can give yourself permission to be obedient, right? In public and in real time and experience the palpable shifts in creative vulnerability, right? It transforms you. Public practice transforms you. It makes you fall deeper in love with the way the work allows you to access parts of yourselves or parts of yourself, right? That you were sure, that you were content on keeping hidden. I'm currently experiencing that. And I have decided that I'm going to stretch out of my comfort zone and begin opening each one of these podcast episodes with a poem that sort of like fell into my lap during the week of these recordings. And y'all, this one is called What to Do. What do we do with all this death, with all this smoke, with all this ash, with all this spit, with all these bills? Arundhati Roy said, another world is on her way, and on a quiet day, we can hear her breathing. Well, today she's roaring. Quick, baby, find the water. You are the only one that can give yourself permission to remember the water, the smell of Sankofa soup. Quick, baby, find the water. Lap up the memory milk and learn to breathe inside it before they kill us all. What do we do with all this death, with all this smoke, with all this ash, with all this spit, with all these bills? Here I am, treading water, swimming through my fear to get to you. What to do? What to do? How about I keep stroking till you smell it too? Episode 69. Scale your impact without scaling your capacity through the power of a framework. Y'all, we know this place as the North Carolina Black River. They know it as Psychofa, a parallel universe suspended among past and future where cornrows are cryptography keys, data farms are data forests. A weaving loom is a computer, cotton is encoded with freedom dreams, and chain link fencing from demolished prisons is used as architectural membrane woven with plant life in Psychofa. The trees have learned to communicate using the data Psychophians have encoded in the tree's DNA and tree ring memory. This is the narrative framework of Cedar School. The school is named after a speculative ancestor suspended between the past and the future in a parallel universe named Psychofa. Today, I want to talk to you about the power of frameworks. What's a framework, you might be asking, right? Well, some similar frameworks might include the 12-step program, like the 12 steps in the 12-step program, the astrological wheel, right? Astrology, human design, if you're into that, right? Story circles, if we're trying to figure out the arc of our story that we're telling. And 8 to abolition, right? And there's so many more. But these are just some of the frameworks that we might know and love. Right. Then there are the more nefarious frameworks, the frameworks animating our lives in the background, right? The patriarchy embedded in the Ten Commandments, the death and ongoing slavery, right? The history of slavery and genocide that's encoded in the Constitution of the United States. The Black Codes, also known as the Slave Codes, right? See Code Noir by Tanisha Lubrin, a beautiful, beautiful text that I usually have right above me, right? Beautiful, beautiful text. If you are looking at the video on Spotify or YouTube, you can see me holding the book in my hand in collaboration, kind of the illustrated these codes or maybe stories that Tanisha Lubrin wrote in response to the codes were illustrated by, drawn by, animated by Turquasi Dyson. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Another framework, nefarious framework that we may be familiar with, more recent, Project 2025, right? You following me? Are you following me? Once we start learning about frameworks, we see them everywhere, right? There are some, like, from frameworks are some of the most powerful world building tools that we invent, rehearse, subscribe to, and embody as a species, whether knowingly or unknowingly, like consciously or subconsciously, right? Or unconsciously, right? And this is where a lot of maybe our unconscious bias comes from, right? It was probably seeded with the help and collaboration of a framework. Now, the question is, how do we use frameworks to seed irresistible revolution for the purposes of building irresistible worlds? That's the animating question inside Seed to School, right? If there was ever an organizing question inside my practice, it is that. How can we framework irresistible worlds? And frameworks are world building tools, and I'm here to recommend, gently, gently, gently recommend that we start creating new ones, right? Ones we can bear. Frameworks rooted in abolition, right? And ways of being outside of colonial order. And inside Cedar School, I always say even our play needs a ground, right? Even improvised jazz has a framework that musicians play inside of. Our community agreements and relational guidelines are simply creative constraints that gives our freedom form. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that one more time because I really want us to play with that idea. Our community agreements and relational guidelines are simply creative constraints that gives our freedom form, gives our freedom permission, right? An abstract artist, Turquoise Dyson, alludes to this when reflecting on her hypershapes. She says, and y'all tune in. I'm going to read this epigraph. It's a little long, but it's so good. It's so packed with very, very like powerful reflections. So Takwase Dyson says, hypershapes started as drawings made in response to the spatial strategies of enslaved people who hid or were stowed away in architectural spaces to attain their freedom, especially Anthony Burns, right? Think about the hall or the curve. Henry Box Brown, think about the box or the square. And Harriet Jacobs, think about the garret or the triangle. Takwase Dyson says, I developed an ecosystem of geometries connected to liberation strategies to imagine more livable infrastructures and architectures. She continues, with Black geography in mind, I began to develop a multi-scalar approach to think about magnitude in relation to direction and distance in relation to the corporeal as the potential of improvisation in relation to projected geometries. She said, I needed a new set of geometric scale strategies to develop my ideas around nomadicity, liberation, movement, and perception. Listen to this. She says, the collective spatial intelligence of Black refusal provided a foundation for transformation. Hypershapes are both compact and expansive, porous and opaque. It is a system to maintain a discursive practice. She says it's a living algorithm, right? I want to argue abolition is a living algorithm. Your values are a living algorithm. Your journey of transformation is a living algorithm. Your creative process, right, is a living algorithm. A framework is simply a living room for rehearsal. It's a discursive practice place, a discursive practice space. And inside Cedar School, we host quarterly creative retreats. And in the sixth week, right, the sixth week inside of the Cedar World Retreat is actually dedicated to inventing your framework, right? Your framework of practice using the seed data of your lived experience. And the journey you dream of taking your client, viewer, reader, student, peer, study partner, listener, etc. on, right? What journey are you taking them on, right? Whatever you call the person you came here to serve. By creating and sharing your framework, you extend your practice space toward us and invent a meeting place for rehearsal that can be spun up synchronously or asynchronously, right? With or without you, right? And this is how you scale your impact without having to scale your capacity per se. Your framework can take the form of a book, an online course, a track list for a music album, right? A series of scenes in a movie or a film, a retreat, a series of programming, right? Events, lectures, right? Your framework can take the form of your own like consulting practice. I was going to say proprietary consulting practice, but we try to get away from the language of like intellectual property inside of Cedar School. But in a lot of ways, your framework acts as your intellectual thumbprint. It has the power to become a meaning-making system other world builders can strategize and dream with inside of their own creative practice. You can also sell your framework before producing the work in order to generate the upfront funds needed to pay yourself, right? To produce your offer or project. And what's more, y'all, if you can't tell already, I'm obsessed with frameworks. What's more is a framework allows you to sell your process instead of your personhood. As I mentioned at the top of this episode, this is why you rarely like see me post about my personal life online, right? I am a facilitator. I am an artist. I am a writer, not an influencer. I don't post um vacation photos or what I had for breakfast this morning. Although, let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with us posting whatever we want to post on our social media accounts, right? We reserve the right. What I'm personally clear on, though, is I am not online to sell some aspirational version of my life to attract brand deals. I'm online to invite folks into my process, not my personhood. I'm online to invite other world builders into a creative process that continues to serve, heal, and inspire me in an infinite number of ways. This brings me to Sojourner Truth, right? What artifact did Sojourner Truth leave us with, right? What was her creative offer in 1864? It was a portrait, right, with her words. I quote, "I sell the shadow to support the substance," right? And at a human rights convention, Sojourner Truth commented that, quote, "She used to be sold for other people's benefit, but now she sold herself for her own." Y'all, we can impact the folks we dream of serving without extending ourselves past the capacity of our bodies and the boundaries of our values. With that little portrait, that card, right? She is still serving us centuries later, lifetimes later. Finally, our frameworks act as this fractal technology, right? A living algorithm that can transform us with or without your physical body in both life and death. During an interview with Sarah Reese referring to the ontology of Blackness, author Jaffa, is it Jaffa or Jaffa, y'all? Bear with me. Author Jaffa was quoted invoking Nam June Pak. I'm gonna like link all of these references in the show notes and in the citations. But this is the quote that author Jaffa left us with. He goes, "The culture that's going to survive in the future, you can carry around in your head. We're super strong culturally in those spaces where our culture was carried on our nervous systems, music, oratorical stuff, dance. Those are all the things that you carry in your body. So if you're enslaved in Africa, put on a ship, brought to the Americas, you carry those things with you. But this sort of material expressivity, painting, sculpture, architecture, erodes really fast because you can't carry a building when you're on a slave ship. And even if you're emancipated from the slave ship and introduced into this new alien environment, whether you're on a chain gang, plantation, prison, doesn't really matter. You can continue to sing. You can continue to talk. You can continue to dance. End quote. I'm recording this podcast episode to extend this argument. I want to argue frameworks, which are simply relational guidelines for transformation, are also a figment of culture that you can carry around in your head and on your nervous system. Just like a dance, just like a song, just like a story. A framework is a proposal for a way of being, and each one of us can invent one unique to our lived experiences and interdisciplinary curiosities and skill set. What's your proposal? What's your living algorithm? What's your framework? And how might it serve as the bones of your creative offer? The architectural scaffold of your world, the world you invite us into, right? Let's find that out together. Now, this is where we move into the invitation portion of the podcast. And this is where I invite you to work with us on building out the framework of your world inside Cedar School. This is the week this episode comes out is the last full week of open enrollment for the winter session. If you're curious about what it's like to work together, then I want to invite you to our World Building Workshop series, where you will discover your creative offer and learn how to financially resource your practice without compromising your values and the pleasure of your creative play. The last two workshops of the season are on January 21st and January 23rd, noon Eastern Standard Time, and the link to register for free can be found in this episode's show notes. I want to invite you to join us to learn more about Cedar School's World Building Framework. I hope to see you there. As we come to a close, truly, 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 thank you for tuning into another episode of the podcast for the World Builders, where we dive into the spells and strategies of Black feminist world building while exploring how offering the skills and wisdom from your journey of transformation might seed, resource, and deepen creative practices rooted in collective liberation, y'all. I firmly believe we all came into this world creative. We all came into this world with something to offer. And deep down, we all want to orient around politics of love instead of politics of fear. We are wrapped in politics of fear. But we are also wrapped and buoyed and held by our capacity to love. And these are the beliefs that we try to honor inside of Cedar School. And as always, this podcast will forever be free. It is my open-hearted offer to you. But the best way to support the podcast is by sharing it with a friend or taking a screenshot or a screen recording of the episode and sharing it on social media so other world builders can find us. You will never, and I mean never, ever, ever see a Cedar School ad while scrolling the metaverse if I have anything to do with it. So I am putting my faith in you and the work instead. All right. See, the school deeply relies on word of mouth to keep the lights on, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a cousin, to tell a auntie, to tell a hairstylist. If you want to keep these episodes coming, and I heard rating and leaving a review helps too, y'all. I have been reading the reviews on Apple Podcasts, and just thank you, thank you, thank you. It would mean the world if you took this moment to leave a review. The second best way to support is by becoming a paid subscriber to the Cedar School Substack at $5 a month, but only if you have the capacity to do so. Again, these will continue to be free. Until next week. So be it. See to it. Breathe through it.